I've always wanted to do that. Well, it has been a very hot minute since I sat down to last record a podcast episode. And by hot minute, I mean it has been 3 years since I put out a Word Weaver podcast episode, and I am officially back. A lot has happened since we last spoke. 2021 was still the year of COVID. I'm sorry to bring that back up. Nobody wants to relive those years, but we were still in COVID. And since then, I have gotten married, I bought a house, and I had a baby. So I hit the three M's: marriage, mortgage, and motherhood since I last sat down to record a Word Weaver podcast episode, which is crazy to think how much has changed in my personal life and also in my career, in my writing life. But that's why I'm really excited to be relaunching with a brand new season of the Word Weaver podcast. This time I am partnering with Sickbird Productions. They are an LA-based network, and the founder is a female founder. She was one of Forbes 30 Under 30. She is incredible, so inspiring, and I love partnering with brilliant, creative, visionary women. So I'm really excited to have the Word Weaver podcast be a part of Sickbird Productions, their podcast network. So they're a super smart, sharp, visionary company, really creative, and I love working with people like that who just make things happen and who have their finger on the pulse. Their mission is also to highlight women-centric content, female voices, and I just couldn't be more excited to be a part of their incredible roster of talent. And in working with them, I just really hope to take the podcast to the next level, but also at the same time, for this new season, for this new launch, I also really want to kind of go back to brass tacks, go back to basics, and really keep it casual and conversational. That's what I like to listen to. And I also feel like there's just so much highly produced content out there, which is amazing. But in the season of life that I'm in as a brand new mother and a full-time author, I just don't have the bandwidth to record, edit, produce, upload all of that myself. And I think there's something nice where I feel like I'm talking directly to you. I like being able to just sit here in my home office, pick up my microphone, and chat with you. I had all of these grand ideas when I was going to relaunch the podcast. I've actually recorded a bunch of different episodes over the past 3 years that I just never released. And I don't even think I plan on releasing them because they just don't really go with the new tone of where I want Word Weaver to go. It just didn't feel right ever to relaunch something when I wasn't in the headspace to be consistent with it. And one of the biggest reasons why I went on a hiatus for so long was really the amount of time, effort, and energy it takes to do your research for interviews, to sit down, record an episode, to edit an episode, and do all of the show notes, the behind the scenes back end tech stuff to get it out on Spotify, put it up on my blog, host, all of that. But I love that kind of stuff. So I still do it all myself. And I'm just really working with Sickbird to help with the distribution of the podcast, get it out to a wider network of people who are writers, readers interested in this kind of content. So the plan for me moving forward is 4 episodes per month, 2 solo episodes, and 2 author interviews or interviews with people in the bookish community. It could be a literary agent, could be an editor at a publishing house, could be a bookstagram star. And I want to keep it a little bit more flexible. So some months there might be 3 solo episodes and just 1 author interview. It really depends on my bandwidth and the topics that I want to share with you. There's something about podcasting that I always come back to, and I've really, really missed podcasting. This is one of my favorite platforms to connect with people. I find it very vulnerable and raw compared to a lot of the other social media platforms out there. I think I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of Instagram. I think a lot of people are. I still like to go on there. If I had to pick a platform, Instagram would still be one of them. But I've contemplated completely deactivating or deleting it. There's something about sitting down and just mindlessly scrolling that I don't want to be doing with my time anymore. I've lost both of my grandmothers recently. We were very close. And I just also now having a new baby, my time is a lot more limited. but I just think of life more, the circle of life, and what do I want to be doing with my time? Where do I want to be focusing my efforts and my energy? And I will say that about having a newborn, it's that you are forced to be living in the present. You cannot dwell on the past or worry too much about the future. You are focused in the here and now and what needs to be done. But when I do have these little pockets of time and I think of, okay, how do I want to spend the next week or the next 6 months of 2024 or the next 5 years? Do I want to be wasting that time scrolling on social media or watching TV shows? I mean, I do still have a bit of an obsession with trashy TV like Real Housewives and all of that stuff, but I'm trying to curb it because I don't want that to be where I put my energy and my focus. Anyway, I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but again, that's what I love about podcasting. It's just conversation, me and you, free form, me telling you my thoughts. These are not contrived or scripted. It's just for the solo episodes, topics that are top of mind for me. They will always have a sort of writerly, bookish slant. And that's definitely where I want to keep this podcast focused on is giving you writing tips, motivation, advice, also sharing what I'm reading and behind the scenes of my personal writing life as a full-time author. So if there are any other topics or things that you're curious about that you'd like me to include in solo episodes, I'm always all ears. Please reach out, let me know. You can find me, like I just said, on Instagram. If I'm going to keep one, it would be that. I've already, I believe, deactivated Twitter or X. I am contemplating getting rid of Facebook. I don't even really go on it that much anymore. YouTube, I still do like because it's long form content. And Instagram, again, I have my bookshop bucket list account on there. I have this Word Weaver podcast account on there. So I won't be able to get rid of it completely. But yeah, those are probably kind of the two mediums. And then this podcast is one of my absolute favorites because I don't know, there's something where I share things on here that I maybe normally wouldn't elsewhere. And I can't capture everything in an Instagram caption or just a 3D image on Instagram the way I can vocally and sit down and work through my thoughts in a podcast episode. So that's kind of what the solo episodes are going to be about. And then I'm really excited to get back to talking to some of my favorite authors. I have a lot of author friends in the industry, and then just being able to reach out to people that I admire, authors that I'm really liking these days, picking their brain and talking writing craft, what their writing routine is, getting inside their head a little bit. And hopefully that inspires you if you are a writer or even if you're just a reader and you are interested in this kind of stuff. I hope that the Word Weaver podcast is a place you can come back to weekly, listen to episodes, and just feel like you're having a conversation with a friend or an author and you get something out of it. I want it to be at least a little bit inspirational, if not educational. The one big trend that has changed, I've noticed in the past 3 years since I last recorded a podcast episode, has been the influx of video podcasts. Ugh, so that's why you're going to be seeing more clips here on Instagram and also full episodes on YouTube because if you can't beat them, join them. That's just the way of the world. People like to watch podcasts now, which to me is kind of just like a vlog. But the one of the things that I loved about podcasting initially was that there was no face to it. It was kind of anonymous. You could sit in your sweatpants looking disgusting and greasy in your house and just pick up a microphone and unfurl your thoughts. But some episodes, maybe I will do that. I don't know. We'll see. I will probably still pick up the camera and record it visually for you because I just know that a lot of people, that's how they consume content these days. Most people are visual. And yeah, but you will also still be able to listen to the podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple iTunes, wherever you get your audio podcasts. So yeah, I wanted to let you know that that is also a new change, that this podcast will have more visual content because again, like I said, if you can't beat them, join them. I actually looked into and contemplated making this more of a high quality video production, getting a studio downtown, high quality microphones, but I kept coming back to I just wanted it to be casual and conversational and not too highly produced. There's so much content out there like that, and it is amazing. But again, the season of life that I'm in, I don't have the bandwidth to really do that. And that's not the kind of content that I love to consume myself. So I want to keep it low key. Maybe the video production quality isn't as highly produced as you are used to with podcasts out there. My microphone here is probably outdated, but hopefully the quality is at least a little bit better than recording on my laptop or my iPhone. I do have a Zoom H4. I used this back in journalism school to record interviews. This is a really great mic. You can plug in two separate microphones for interviews on the fly. So once I get going back into podcasting, I will probably do a couple of those. So if I have an interview with another author and we're in person, I can use that. Or a lot of the interviews will be remote, so we'll probably just record it through Zoom and share the video that way. So you can kind of feel like you're in on a little Zoom meeting with us. So that's just a little bit of the housekeeping that I wanted to share with you as I get back into recording the podcast. Bear with me. I am quite rusty and I'm not used to being on camera and recording at the same time. So we shall see how this goes. Hopefully, I'm sure I'll say something stupid and I don't even know if I can cut it out because it's just we're rolling here, we're going. But today's podcast chapter is something that has been on my mind a lot lately, and I really just wanted to sit down, pick up the mic and record this. I don't exactly know where it's going to go, but you can probably tell by the title of this episode that it's a little bit more vulnerable for me. And I just want to caveat by saying that anything that I talk about is my honest, raw feelings and opinions, but I have the utmost respect for other mothers. This is not a judgment call on anyone at all. This is just how I was feeling, and I wanted to be honest about it because I feel like I was kind of drowning for a while I was pregnant. I really by the end had a lot of antenatal anxiety, and it was kind of dark there for a while where I was crying consistently nonstop. I didn't recognize myself, and those thoughts started to manifest into, will this turn into postpartum depression? So today's episode is a bit of a vulnerable, raw one, which hopefully they all are pretty vulnerable and raw and honest. That's my hope, at least. But this is something that has been on my mind a lot recently, and I wanted to sit down and record an episode about it because I was really scared of losing my identity as a writer when I became a mother. And now that I am 5 weeks into it, I am still going through it. I have not come out on the other side, so I don't have a clear answer that I can wrap this episode up in a shiny package with a bow on it. I'm working through all of these feelings as I go, but I have a little bit more clarity than I did before I had the baby. And it's just something that I really want to talk about because I felt kind of alone in this and I didn't have anyone else. I had people to share these thoughts with, but no one that could truly kind of relate to what I was going through. And I'm sure there are other authors and writers out there who have felt similarly. I just wasn't even in a place to reach out to anyone because when I am going through something dark and I don't have the answers to it, I actually turtle hibernate even more because I don't want to talk about it with people because I don't have the answers and I feel I'm a perfectionist. Like I always feel like I need to have everything figured out before I share. And I also want to come to a conclusion myself on my own, and I don't want to get muddled with other people's thoughts and opinions. So that's one of the reasons I didn't really talk about it beforehand, but I feel comfortable talking about it now because I do feel in a pretty positive headspace. That being said, I did not feel that while I was pregnant, especially at the very end. It started off well, my pregnancy, but I will be very honest in that I wasn't sure that I wanted kids for a really long time. And even coming to that decision to have kids was a hard one for me. I feel like it's something everyone says it, you're never going to be ready. You're never going to fully be ready because it's something you've never done before. It's like if any big life challenge, if it's the unknown, it's the fear of the unknown, really, is what it is. But the thing with coming to the decision with having a baby that was different for me, well, for everyone, compared to any other big life transition or change is that there was no going back. I mean, this goes without saying, but the biggest thing with deciding and choosing to have a baby is the permanency of it. This is the biggest decision of anyone's life. Any other big life decision that I've had where I was experiencing the fear of the unknown, even the transition of going from high school to university or making the leap from university and moving to New York or Switzerland, that was terrifying in and of itself because it was so new and a big change of will I like it there? Will I be able to hack it in a new country by myself? It's a different kind of decision making because those kinds of things, you always have a safety net. You can always pivot and change and move back home or do something different. You can recalibrate and regroup and figure it out. Whereas having a baby is permanent, it's for life. There is no going back. Once you make that decision, it is for life. And again, that probably sounds really stupid and trite, but for me, I take things like that so seriously. And I think I probably overthought it to the point of scaring myself a lot of having kids. And I am turning 35. I'm 34 right now. So depending where you are in your life, I could be late having kids. I could also be young having kids. I know a lot of my friends in New York, they've frozen their eggs and they're starting to have kids at 38, 39, some in their 40s. Yeah, just again, to each their own, everything is different. But for me, it took a while to decide whether I wanted to have kids. And finally, I did come to the decision that yes, this is something I want in my life. I'm still terrified because I love my life as it is. It's very hard to incorporate something new when you like the status quo, when you like how everything is going. It took me years to cultivate a life that I truly, truly loved as a full-time writer, and I still love. I shouldn't use the past tense. It took me years to cultivate a life that I love as a full-time author. And as the pregnancy went on, I could start to see this cosmic shift already of how people perceived me, of how I was viewed and treated in society by my peers, by my family and friends, but also, most importantly, by myself. It's this very weird underlying pressure. And it felt like I was about to take on this completely new role where I was really excited to meet this baby and raise this human, but I was also terrified about the tasks. If you think of taking a new job and you look at all of the tasks that are expected of you on the job application, I kind of looked at the job application of motherhood and didn't like any of the tasks on it. It just scared the shit out of me, especially since I really loved what I was currently doing. It felt daunting to replace the life and the routine that I was living with this new routine. And being a mother, being a new parent, I can honestly say is people prepare you, they try to prepare you. I never would have understood any of it until I was fully living it and under in it. Like people tell you you will be sleep deprived, but I didn't really understand what that meant until I was getting up every 2 hours and I haven't slept for 5 weeks straight after being sliced open. Like in no other world do you experience something so barbaric as being spliced open and then you're not allowed to sleep immediately after that major surgery. Any other time you would take the week off work, you would sleep, you would take all the drugs, you would recover, but no, your focus immediately after that is to take care of this helpless, tiny, precious human being. And that is a privilege in itself. So, yeah, as the pregnancy went on, it became very overwhelming to me. I couldn't envision how I would be able to balance all of the things that I love. And I'm a very ambitious person and working on a new manuscript, working on bookish projects like this podcast or my bookshop bucket list, those things really fill my cup and they take a lot of time. And being a writer is all about solitude. You need endless amounts of solitude, alone time. And really, being a mother is the antithesis of that. You are never alone. You are responsible for another precious, helpless little human being. And I want to be really clear that I am so honored and so happy to be a new mother. It's just the fact that I could not calibrate how I would be able to maintain these things that I love as a writer, knowing what it entails, knowing how much alone time and dedicated focus you really need to write a book and publish a book and all of the hats that come with being a writer. It's not just sitting down and writing. A lot of it is intense research. A lot of it is writing, then rewriting, editing, and then you have to put on your marketing and sales hat and keep up a author brand or author persona through your social media. Creating content takes a lot of time and energy and effort. And my days were already very full. I felt like my plate was already overflowing with things that I had on the go, whether it was my next book, work-related projects, and things that I'm really excited about launching. And the fact of the matter is, I'm a solo entrepreneur. I don't really get a maternity leave because if I'm not writing, if I'm not producing, everything else falls to the wayside. I'm only as good as the content, the books that I'm producing. There's no one else really that can do it. So I felt this immense pressure to finish as much as I could, but also figure out a way to keep the train going once I had a baby, which I will say that now I was very naive and the baby came early. So I also really was thrown off balance with that, but I should have known better. Like, you're not going to be able to sit down and record a podcast or even sit down and write a chapter because you barely have time to get a shower in each day. And you're just surviving. And it's a whole new learning curve being a new parent, which again, I wouldn't trade for the world. And I just want to keep reiterating how lucky and privileged I feel to be a new mother. He is the best little boy. He is healthy, he is happy, and I don't even think I've mentioned his name on here yet, but my son's name is Henrik, and we really love that name because it's the Swedish version of Henry. And my ancestors are Swedish, Scandinavian, so we thought it was a really nice idea to incorporate my heritage as well as my husband. He's half Chinese, so our baby's surname is a Chinese surname, and then we have the Swedish first name. And I don't know, I love the name Henrik. I think it's unique. He won't be one of many in his class as he grows up. I think it's strong. And you can use the nicknames that everyone uses for Henry if you think Henrik is hard to say or a bit out there. But yeah, anyway, that's a little side tangent about his name. It's been a doozy. I won't say it's been easy. It's been really, really hard. There have been high highs and low lows. Every day, every hour is a new adventure. And breastfeeding has been a challenge for me. It's something that I didn't anticipate, but I've been working through it. And we're in a bit of a good groove as of today. I won't say now because you never know, it could change, but I feel good about that. And the adrenaline has worn off from the first couple weeks and the novelty of it all and the exhaustion definitely has hit. And my husband and I were saying we don't kind of see the end in sight just yet. I mean, we're pretty new. It's our first baby. We're only 5 weeks in. So we go, okay, well, hopefully when he sleeps through the night, we'll be able to catch up and our brains will be able to function again. The newborn haze and the fog is very real. Some days you just don't get out of your pajamas and you're on the couch and I'm just breastfeeding or changing a diaper or trying to calm a gassy baby so that he doesn't cry. It's just wild, but seeing him grow and seeing him start to even have little smiles, his little personality develop. He is incredible, and I feel really lucky to be his mom. But that is the juxtaposition of all of this is that I love this new role so much. I could see doing it 24/7, which I am right now. I understand being a stay-at-home full-time mom actually is, I mean, bow down. It is the most incredible, selfless, hardest job there is, and stay-at-home mothers honestly should be paid. They are the CEOs of those households, and they don't get a break. It's a 24/7 job, like I said. Anyway, I am struggling with the fact that I want to be amazing at anything that I set my mind to, and being a mother is no different. I really want him to thrive. I want to be the best mother that I can be for this little guy, but I also don't want to lose myself in the process. And I have been struggling with feeling like I don't know what matters as much anymore, where my priorities are. As soon as I had the baby, like the way I was thinking in the last weeks of pregnancy compared to even now is night and day. I can feel my brain chemistry changing. In a good way, it's changing. It's making me reevaluate who I spend time with, how I spend my time because it is so limited, what matters most, what I need to prioritize. And I was getting a little bit overwhelmed there for a moment when I would have a spare pocket of 3 hours. Like my husband or my mom helped relieve me and watch the baby for 3 hours so that I could do something for myself. And I didn't know whether should I nap? Should I shower? Should I open my laptop and try to answer some emails? Should I respond to texts? Should I work on a new book project? Even though I'll never be able to finish it again, when will I open it? So I was just getting very overwhelmed and just started crying every time because I didn't know where to start. And did start with focusing on getting my mental health back on track and feeling physically good. So taking that shower, having that nap became priority. It's really in survival mode. But now that I am getting a little bit more of a routine, and we had a discussion about me having set times weekly that I could look forward to so I would know, okay, if I start a work project on a Tuesday and I have 2 hours or 1 hour to even do it, I don't get overwhelmed and stressed out that I'll never be able to revisit it for months. I know that I will have another session the following week to pick it back up. And mentally, that's been really helpful for me. But it's also been a huge adjustment to the way I work. And I'm still trying to figure out the best routine because I am so used to having my work schedule and these extended periods of time. I could go on a writing retreat weekend and have no cares in the world except the manuscript that I was working on in that moment. But now I have these little short spurts, these little pockets of time, and I have to be very strategic about how I use that going forward. So I'm figuring it out as I go, and I'm trying not to be too hard on myself, but I also am trying to maintain something, and that's what I've had to let go of. For the past 5 weeks, when I would think about work or get stressed, I mean, most of the time I was just trying to keep this little baby alive. But when I would allow myself to think about myself and think about my career, I would get really overwhelmed of what even matters? What is the point of it anymore? Who am I as a writer? I was actually in the midst of securing a new book deal when I first found out that I was pregnant. My first thought, instead of, I mean, I was excited and terrified and all of those things, but immediately, I guess my second or third thought afterwards was, I am terrified to tell my literary agent and my publisher that I'm expecting a baby because I thought it would jeopardize negotiations. And as far as women have come, I do know that still there's often this underlying assumption that I wouldn't be as committed or capable of hitting editorial deadlines or as available for the sales and marketing when it came to that with a new book contract. There just is the assumption that I wouldn't be as available or committed because I am having a new baby. And part of that is true. It also terrified me in that I knew I would have this whole other role that I was taking on. I mean, whether we like to admit it or not, there's still this unconscious bias when women in the workplace announce a pregnancy that they're already halfway out the door. They won't be as committed or as available to work on a project, hit deadlines. And maybe not all employers are like that, but that's what I felt. I'm just being very honest that it would hurt my career. And part of that is as a writer, as a full-time author, I don't have the luxury of a paid maternity leave. I'm only as relevant as my last book, and I'm only as financially lucrative as my last book. So if I'm not producing anything new, my agent doesn't get their cut, I have no new royalties or advances coming in, and the publisher is honestly on to the next author in the queue. It's a conveyor belt, and if you take yourself off of the conveyor belt, there is someone else just as talented, just as qualified behind you, ready to have a bestseller out there. So the publisher's attentions, as much as they love you when you are producing, they also can forget about you just as quickly because there is someone else behind you in line with another amazing book. So that was a big fear. I do have to say that I finally got over it. I told everyone, I announced it, and the reception was incredibly warm. Everyone said the loveliest things. And they were very open and understanding of me trying to do as much as I could up until my due date, and then kind of refiguring out, rejigging timelines for launches and book tours and all of that fun stuff, with knowing I would be having a newborn and be unavailable and having a whole new learning curve going on. So it definitely did change my career in a sense, but it wasn't, obviously people were very nice about it. It just stressed me out in the moment, and I'm being super transparent and honest about that. But everything is figure outable. I know that's not a word, but you can always find a way to accommodate new things. It's just refocusing and going down a different path than you originally anticipated. And then another part of the equation, as cliche as it sounds, is that I truly love what I do. So I was very scared about diving into this new role and this full-time job as a mom when I already really love the way my days are structured and what I do as a writer. When I'm not researching a new book or working on a new manuscript, I actually feel kind of disembodied. So for me, writing is not only how I make a living, it's also how I enjoy spending my time. It is both of those things. And so I kind of developed this overwhelming anxiety. I had antenatal anxiety through the roof, especially near the end of my pregnancy. A lot of very kind of dark thoughts. I was crying constantly. Hormones played a huge part in that as well. I swear, as soon as they removed my placenta, it might be TMI, but as soon as that was gone, it was replaced with this whole new shift of happy hormones. Thank God. But at the end there, I just couldn't get my head around this new version of myself as a mom and the expectations of motherhood, the underlying expectations society places on moms, and what it's supposed to look like. And just the new role I was taking on. I was very scared of losing everything I had worked so hard for. And I'm working through it now. It is not as terrifying as I made it out to be in my thoughts. Again, I really blame hormones there for making me kind of lose myself. I went a little bit insane, and I didn't even recognize myself at the end. But it also didn't help that seemingly overnight, my Instagram feed switched from bookish posts about writers' retreats or new book launches, because I follow a lot of authors' bookstagram accounts. That's what my explore feed was. And then, like I said, seemingly overnight, I was just inundated with newborn hacks, and either one end of the spectrum, it was these like perfectly coiffed women. They were always wearing gingham dresses for some reason with like bows in their hair in flower fields, holding a basket and just a baby on one hip, looking perfectly coiffed, and like they had the most peaceful life in the country with their gorgeous children. To the other end of the spectrum, where it was these moms and like with greasy top knots, just kind of getting through the day, and all of these hacks and tips for dealing with newborns and burping and how to get rid of colic and how to deal with mastitis, which I have had 3 times now. It is awful. It is honestly worse than any flu or anything I've ever gotten. But that being said, I just immediately felt like even Instagram was showing me this is your new identity. Pick a lane, pick either the perfectly coiffed, perfect Pinterest-worthy mom, or pick the one who shows kind of the reality of living with a toddler, living with a newborn, having the leaky boobs and wearing giant diapers and all that. I just felt overwhelmed that even my social media app is telling me this is who you are now. You don't get to see all of the other people that you follow, all of the author bookish stuff. That is the old you. So I felt kind of this visual manifestation of the fears I was experiencing in my head. And that's just being totally transparent and honest. Also, all the ads I started seeing were like sweaters and mugs with the world's best mom on it, or those like 14 karat gold chains that say mama. And I was like, well, I just want a 14 karat gold chain that says writer. Do I need one of those then? If that's like my new identity, do I need to have it emblazoned across my neck? I don't know. I really got into my head with all of it. And I'm not putting down anyone, by the way, who has that stuff. It's cute. It's nice. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make fun of it. I just, basically, my point is that you don't have that role emblazoned across you as a writer as much as you do as a new mom. And that's kind of just what I'm saying. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just trying to explain how I felt like I was being bombarded and I wasn't ready to accept kind of what I was stepping into. And I couldn't figure out what kind of mother I wanted to be as well as a writer. I just felt like it was one or the other. I couldn't reconcile how to combine these two really important things in my life. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling on a little bit now here, but I'm trying to work through it in real time, and this is the best that I can explain it. Again, just want to caveat that I'm extremely sleep deprived and the newborn brain fog is really real. So I don't even know if half of what I'm saying is making sense. I haven't strung together sentences and spoken to a real adult in a long time. I think in my next episode, I want to talk about this concept of getting my pink back. It's something that my husband actually taught me, and it has something to do with flamingos. So stay tuned for that next solo episode where I will share kind of more tangible tips of how I'm getting out of this funk and this writing slump and calibrating my identity as a writer and as a new mother and figuring out a blend of both. Because I do think I'm starting to figure out a good routine and a method and has something to do with flamingos. It'll all make sense next week. I also just want to end this on more of a positive note. I feel like that was a bit heavy, a bit depressing, maybe, but I don't feel depressed and I wouldn't change it for the world. I do not regret having a kid. I am just over the moon. This is the best decision I've ever made, actually. I'm so in love with, we call him Little Henu. Anyway, he's truly the best thing that has ever happened to me. I feel so lucky to be his mom. I can't wait to teach him everything, watch him grow. And I just really, the moral of the story is I want to keep my creative self intact. I hope that inspires him to also chase his dreams and his ambitions and find a way to do things that fill his cup as well. I know kids really learn by example, not necessarily what you tell them, but by what you do. So hopefully, I can find this balance of raising him, spending time with him, because I really do feel pulled to do that, as well as carving out this time for myself. Because, like I said, having alone time, solitude, is very important as a writer. I need that time to get my creative juices flowing, to think, even just brainstorm and sit down and write in silence. I'm working through it. I'm going to figure out a way to do it. I'm determined. I feel mentally strong. Well, not mentally fully 100% strong, but I'm getting there and I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm I'm just in a new transitory phase. I'm going to end this episode here. Please subscribe or leave a comment on Apple iTunes if you are a new listener. If you are an old listener who is returning, welcome back. I'm really grateful that you are here. And let me know if there's anything else you'd love for me to chat about as we go on with this new season of the Word Weaver podcast. So, wherever you are, I hope you have an amazing day, and I will chat with you soon. Bye.